Oh. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Namaskar and a very good evening to you. Welcome to this edition of the VIF's Vimarsh program. And today we have a very eminent speaker, Shri Srinivas with us. He is Secretary to the Government of India, and he is going to speak on a very important topic which touches all of us almost every single moment of our day, and that is the topic is the new paradigm in governance, 2019 to 24. And I would like to thank Srinivas for accepting our invitation and deliver this talk. Srinivas is associated with us for some time, and some of you may recall he had spoken to us on the same very subject of administrative reforms in an earlier talk given at the VIF in August 2021. That time he had apprised us of the history of administrative reforms and told us about some of the initiatives which the government is taking. But in the last 5 years, I think the process of administrative reforms has deepened considerably and acquired the requisite scale, size, speed, and breadth. If we don't reform our administration, our prospects of rising speedily will be diminished. So administrative reforms, like many other reforms, are so very important. And in our earlier, in last few decades, I think they were kind of lost decades. As we spoke last time, I think there have been something like 40 administrative reform commissions, if I remember. That is what you mentioned. So we were setting up lots of commissions, but we were not able to reform. But I think last 10 years, and particularly last 5 years, have been instrumental. And Srinivas will talk about as to why it is so. But let me just briefly introduce the speaker. Srinivas currently holds, I think, 3 charges: Secretary in the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. He is also Secretary of the Department of Pension and Pensioners Welfare. And he also has the additional charge of Director General for National Center for Good Governance. And he represents India on the Council of Administration of the International Institute of Administrative Sciences in Brussels. He belongs to the 1989 batch of the Indian Administrative Service. He was assigned the Rajasthan cadre, and he has served in the state in very important areas, including the Revenue Board. I think he was the chairman of the Revenue Board in Rajasthan. In his distinguished career, he has held several important assignments in the various ministries of the Government of India, including the Ministry of Petroleum and Gas, Ministry of Textiles, Ministry of Culture, Health and Family Welfare. And he was also the private sector secretary to the Finance Minister and private secretary to the External Affairs Minister during, I think, 2001 and 2003. And he was advisor to the Executive Director of India in the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C. And he has also held the additional charge of Director General of the National Archives. So you can see he has had a very wide experience in the government of India and in the state government. He has received many awards, and I probably it is mentioned in our invitation card which was sent to you. But I would like to mention one, which is the award for Digital India Award 2020 for the implementation of e-office. And I think that is introduction of technology in our office work, and which is what this Digital India Award signifies, and which he was the architect, signifies that today administrative reforms are really gathering speed. But apart from being a bureaucrat, and he is also an acknowledged author and an expert on financial issues, and he has authored 3 books, and 2 of these books are one on IMF and other on G20. In fact, we also had the pleasure of having him some months ago in one of our panel discussions on G20, where he told us about G20, and his these books have been published by the Indian Council of World Affairs. And he writes regularly. He's an academic, and he has written a number of over 200 papers and articles, and delivered over 100 orations. So he is not, in that sense, a typical bureaucrat. He's also been interacting, and I think that's very advantageous because you get a feedback, and that goes back into the policy making and formulation. Mr. Srinivas has a master's degree in chemical engineering from the College of Technologies, Osmania University. So, friends, India is at the cusp of a rise, and it's a historic rise. It's an opportunity for India to occupy its well-deserved place in the community of nations. And as Prime Minister says, we are entering or have entered the Amrit Kal. So the window is short, 2047, we will be 100 years. And by that time, we will have to achieve many goals. And we basically have to reform ourselves. So administrative reforms is one of those several reforms that we have undertaken, and they mutually reinforce. So administrative reform plays a very important role. And India has shown how technology is playing a vital role in good governance today. This is, I think, a great contribution that India has made to the world and to itself, in fact. And good governance, as you know, includes many facets. It includes sound policy formulation, good execution, rapid delivery, inclusivity, transparency, participation, accountability, accessibility, and I think the most important, building trust and confidence between the government and the citizens. So the governance reforms that are underway, I think, have all these elements in varying degrees. And of course, it's a work in progress, and we can always do better. It is to the credit of the Prime Minister and Modi government that the administrative system of the country is being overhauled and is undergoing a rapid transformation. And it is bridging the gap between the government and the citizen. Our experiences in managing the COVID pandemic, in crafting digital public infrastructure, in making health services, education affordable to the poorest sections, in making huge infrastructure, in cutting out the delays, bringing in efficiency. I think these are some of the administrative reforms, or the reforms on which administrative reform has played a big role, is visible to everyone. And the Prime Minister talks about it. It's also part of our, I think, election campaigns which are going on, and we are all quite familiar with it. So, in his talk today, Mr. Srinivas will speak to us about how this transformation came about, how is it taking place, and where is it heading are we satisfied with what we have achieved so far? As the Secretary to the Department of Administrative Reforms and has been associated and public grievances, that's a very important part of this ministry. He's been associated with this department for a long time, now as the Secretary, earlier as the Additional Secretary. So he has this, he has participated in the policy formulation and their implementations. I'm not saying ringside view, but he's also had the ringside view of how the other ministries and departments are functioning. And the fact that some of this reform now are being undertaken by the states. And I think these reforms have to reach the local level also. So these are also part of, I think, the remit, and a number of indices, etc., are being developed. So today, the citizen can have a good idea about how the reforms are progressing. So we couldn't have had better person than Srinivas ji to talk to us about how this paradigm shift has taken place and how is it progressing. So thank you very much for once again joining us, and I request Srinivas ji to take the floor.
At the outset, I'm extremely grateful to Shri Arvind Gupta ji, the director of Vivekananda International Foundation, for inviting me to the Vimarsh lecture series. This is the second time I'm speaking at the Vimarsh series. I also had my book launch that was done for my book, The March to New India, Governance Transformed 2014 to 19. And I had documented the phenomenal transformation of India's governance models in the period 2014 to 19, which were marked by the Digital India program. There was also the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, the Ayushman Bharat Yojana, and the Ujjwala, Skill India, promotion of yoga concepts and the concepts of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And I had presented the technology transformation and presented the radical change in size, scale, scope, and learning paradigms that India's governance models had witnessed. This paper today is an extension and a continuation of the uh, book that I had documented on India's governance from 14 to 19. So 19 to 24 period I wanted to document, and a series of papers I had done on administrative reforms, effective redressal of public grievances, pension reforms, and also in terms of how India's governance models are being viewed by international governance structures and international civil servants. So let me take you through what has happened in the last 5 years. And I've been an active participant in this, having served in Department of Administrative Reforms from 2018 till date. I've had a broad overview of the reforms, and I also could play and contribute a leadership role in terms of taking the governance models of India forward. So let me begin with a quote from the Honorable Prime Minister at the Good Governance Week 2021, in which he said that technology has immense potential to bring government and citizens closer. Today, technology has become a powerful tool to empower citizens and as a medium to optimize transparency and accountability in day-to-day functioning. Through various policy interventions, we are moving strongly ahead towards digital empowerment of citizens and digital transformation of institutions. So, this big transformation of technologically obsolete institutions into fully digital public institutions is something that I had personally seen. I was part of the Digital AIMS program when it became India's first fully digital public hospital, and the Digital Rajaswa Mandal of Board of Revenue, and it brought not only transparency, reduced corruption, but also expedited the pace of decision making. So this all pervasive push to technology adoption was something that I brought in with me when I joined the DRPG in 2018, and this continued to be an obsession as we pursued these various reforms, and that is what we will show you. My talk today covers 12 reform areas which we have undertaken in the DRPG. I'm not taking up the pension reforms today, and I'll not be taking up the National Center for Good Governance today either, but I'll be taking up the Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration, which seeks to recognize meritocracy, the Good Governance Index, which is benchmarking governance, the special campaigns which have had a significant effect on increasing efficiency, the secretariat reforms adopted by many states, effective redressal of public grievances in streamlining CP grams, and then the e-governance programs vis-a-vis the National E-Governance Awards, e-office, benchmarking e-services, and how e-service delivery in India has transformed itself. So three large verticals: administrative reform side, e-governance side, and public grievances is what I'll be covering today. So let me speak about administrative reforms. And one word in which I could describe it is the sheer size, scale, and learning paradigms have undergone and a transformation. It's a metamorphosis in terms of what we see today and what we had seen, say, a decade ago. The biggest change was seen with regard to the Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration. And this is one where every district collector in India, every young civil servant who's working hard and innovating seeks to participate. And it is given to civil servants for outstanding performance. Everybody participates, so there's a lot of constructive competition amongst districts, states, ministries, and also replication or practices are being constantly encouraged. So this officer whom you see here is the district collector of Baramulla, who was rewarded by the Prime Minister with the PM award for her performance in the Aspirational Districts program. From 2006 to 2015, the awards were conferred under three categories. They were individual awards, group awards, and organizations. About 80 nominations were received. The first restructuring happened in 2015, and it was changed from individual applications to priority sector programs. And northeastern states, union territories, other states were divided, and suddenly we made it mandatory for all collectors to participate. The second restructuring was to encourage and identify and reward district collectors on their performance on economic development of the district. And the third restructuring was once again on saturation approach, reaching the last mile. So today, in 2023, we had for the April event, 768 districts out of the 784 districts participated. So that is the kind of scale. From mere 80 applications, we have gone to over 2,500 applications. And currently we give 15 awards per annum. So it's very, very competitive. There are jury committees, there are screening committees which go into performance, there are call centers which review citizen feedback. And in addition, spot study reports are also undertaken. Not only has the award process become so much more competitive, but also the scaling up of the Civil Services Day celebrations. The Honorable Prime Minister has addressed the Civil Services Day every year from 2015 onwards. And he has personally supervised the transition from what was essentially a quarter-day event to a two-day event, in which the Vice President comes for the inaugural, all cabinet ministers who are handling priority sector programs address the event, and more than 50 speakers participate in the event. In addition, the participation levels have gone up to over 26,000 participants in the 2023 event. So, as I said, when you speak of scaling up the size, you can see the transformation in terms of size, scale, and in terms of learning paradigms, where individual officers are interacting with each other and exchanging best practices. One of the manners in which awarded initiatives need to be replicated are through the regional conferences. And we've had an extensive outreach, and in the last 9 years, 25 regional conferences have been held. These are all held in the state capitals. In 22-23 alone, regional conferences have been held across the length and breadth of India. Srinagar, Bengaluru, Itanagar, Mumbai, Bhopal, Jaipur. So as you can see, from Leh to Thiruvananthapuram, from Itanagar to Jaipur, across India, these conferences have been held. And in each conference, an average 500 officers participate. In addition, every month the National Good Governance webinars are held, in which the awarded initiatives are presented by the award winners. So they come and share what were the challenges they faced in terms of implementing new ideas in district level. We've had 18 such webinars, each is attended by more than 3,000 officers. So they're hugely popular ventures in which thousands of officers come and exchange and participate to understand how governance of India can be improved and changes brought in. We also have the Abhinav Pahal series on Sunset TV. Those of you who are interested can download this huge number of episodes. More than 25 episodes have been telecast on it, in which a citizen also participates, a beneficiary, in addition to the award winner and the ministry that's implementing the program, participate in it. And if you wish to study this in terms of a write up, you can go to the innovation portal, the Abhinav Pahal portal that is there, in which all these uh, have been documented in the form of individual blogs. The second big area, one of course, was awards, and I'll also show you the film that the Honorable Prime Minister had seen on Civil Services Day in terms of how saturation approach was being pursued and was being recognized. The second big change is benchmarking governance. It's an assessment of the quality of governance of states. It has also been extended to districts, and today we have benchmarked more than 200 districts of India. And we would be in the midst of a process where we benchmark every district of India. All 780 odd districts are benchmarked across 10 parameters. What we found was that between 2019, when we wrote the first index, and 2021, there has been a positive change across several states, and India's governance models were moving in the right direction. We also found that there were states like Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, where double digit improvements across these 10 sectors and 58 indicators were witnessed. And for example, in terms of Uttar Pradesh had improved significantly in terms of judiciary and public safety, largely because the quantum of women police constables that were recruited in the state had increased significantly. Similarly, Gujarat showed improvements in economic governance as also in judiciary and public safety. For example, the timeline that is there between registering an FIR and the charge sheet, that was something that was monitored at the highest level. And they also had very strong grievance redressal systems. So copies of this voluminous documents are available on our websites, both the Good Governance Index 2019 and 2021. The 2023 index would be released on December 18, 2023, as part of the Good Governance Week celebrations. We have also undertaken an extensive study of districts. Now, unless district, which is the basic unit of governance, moves forward, it's difficult for the state to move forward. So we've tried to disaggregate data and identify how districts have been performing, and are there any districts where increased thrust is required in particular indicators has been identified. We started with the Union Territory of Jammu Kashmir, and then Gujarat, Arunachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh has also been completed. We've done about 200 districts of India have been benchmarked. For example, infrastructure is one big area where every district would like to aspire for more. How have districts progressed in terms of infrastructure? How have they progressed in terms of agriculture? Each of these has been identified, and intervention strategies have been taken up. These are not one-time efforts. In fact, Jammu Kashmir has updated. What happens when you write an index is many of the states need to publish district level indicators. But the Directorates of Economics and Statistics and the Planning Department have to update data on a regular basis. So an initiative to create a district level index or a state level index has brought in tremendous pressure in terms of timely publication of statistics and ensures timely publication of statistics. The second big area that I'd like to take up is e-governance. And e-governance, once again, how do we promote e-governance? I have seen this Union Territory of Jammu Kashmir having a mere 15 services, just 15 e-services were there. Today, Jammu and Kashmir provides 1,080 services as e-services. The transformation in terms of scaling up is largely possible through dissemination. And the 25th National E-Governance Conference had tremendous spillover effects. They were held in Katra in Jammu division, and tremendous spillover effects. 2,000 participants, academics, industry, as also bureaucrats participating, the award winners coming to share their experiences. Several hackathons were presented, and the tremendous spillover. Today we have more than 15,000 services being presented as e-services. When we wrote the National E-Services Delivery Assessment in 2021, we had, on an average, we had assessed 1,440 services. So the quantum jump that we have witnessed in terms of e-services across the landscape of India is something that is a tremendous progression. It's a linear progression that can be seen, and this is one of the most comprehensive reports that has been seen. How are individual web portals faring in terms of content availability, in terms of status and request tracking, in terms of privacy and security, and in terms of ease of use. So, in each of these parameters, the state portals as also the service portals have been assessed. In addition, several ministry portals have been assessed, and what it came up with was 68% of the total e-services, of the total services were being provided as e-services. To achieve a quantum leap, the NASDA way forward report has been identified. We had initially identified 56 mandatory services, and these should be provided as e-services. They included revenue services, registration of births and deaths, social welfare. So 56 e-services were identified. Today, it has been further expanded to 164 mandatory services. We've also roped in the right to service commissioners across states who come in and ensure that this list is constantly updated and those services are transformed into e-services. The NASDA way forward also serves the purpose of understanding the e-governance map of India. The changing face of e-governance maps is something that is a joy to watch. Every time I see 3 months back, 13,000 services as e-services. This last month, we put in 15,000 services as e-services. That is the kind of transformation and scaling up that we are witnessing. The objective was to reduce the number of visits a citizen has to make to a government office. And if you read the second ARC looked at reducing the number of visits to a minimum of not more than 3 to 4 visits. Today, a citizen need not visit a government office. Most of the work can be done online, be it in terms of railway reservations, airline reservations. Digi Yatra is such a big success story. So if you go through the National E-Services Delivery Assessment along with the Way Forward reports, you'll find a series of success stories as also a series of practices which citizens have adopted at a great level. The secretariats are very large organizations. In fact, the Government of India, the Central Secretariat has 84 ministries and departments. So it's one of the largest institutions that we have. Similarly, the states have large secretariats. An average of about 100,000 employees work in a state secretariat, if not more. Larger states have even more. How do we transform the secretariat into a nimble, agile, modern day institution? That was a mandate that was given to us, and this was a three-pronged approach. The first is reduce pendency in the secretariat. Hundreds of members of parliament references come to the secretariat, chief minister's references. Reduce the pendency and timelines of disposal. Swachhata campaigns, files are not weeded out. Office furniture is not weeded out. Electronic scrap not weeded out. Vehicles not weeded out. Have a time-bound campaign to clean up the entire outdated furniture, laptops, create a modern day secretariat. The second is increase efficiency in decision making, reform the processes, rewrite the central secretariat manual of office procedure. And the third is the e-office, which was adopted all through the secretariat. I did join at a time when we had about 400,000 e-files, 400,000 e-files. 5 years later, we have 30 lakh e-files. 3 million e-files. The Secretariat was operating at about 25 to 30% of the total e-file system was on e-office. The remaining was all physical files. Today we have 90% of the files are e-files. So that was what brought us the National E-Governance Award or the Digital India Award of 2020, that we transformed the Secretariat as a paperless institution. So we bring out these monthly publications on Secretariat reforms. These are available on our website, how the Central Secretariat is moving forward in terms of digital practices. So this is a campaign that has been run in the last 1 month, October 2nd to October 31st. And when we run a campaign of this scale and size across all of Government of India, covering 2.5 lakh office spaces, it's a massive campaign. Several hundreds of thousands of offices are involved. And the areas on which the identification of pendency, records management, as also e-office systems, capacity building of records officers, preservation of office records has been taken up. And these are the results. For last 3 years, government has conducted 3 campaigns, and we've earned 1100 crores from disposal of office scrap. Hundreds of vehicles have been sold, hundreds of files have been weeded out, and also a whole lot of office scrap, including electronic scrap, furniture, has been disposed of. The space freed from this office scrap being disposed is 345 lakh square feet. It's an incredibly large volume of space that has come. Offices which were running in private office spaces could be relocated. The cleanliness campaign was conducted in 3.93 lakh offices. So, the massive coverage of the institution and almost 100 lakh files. 1 crore files have been weeded out. Can you imagine? Even to weed out, we had last year about 10,000 files which needed to be weeded out. It took us 2.5 months to weed out the files, to shred them. It's not easy. And the fact that 1 crore files have been weeded out is a massive, gigantic task that has been undertaken in the Secretariat. This is this year's campaign, and 2.53 lakh office spaces, 500 crores the revenue earned, 24 lakh physical files weeded out, and 154 lakh office spaces freed. Now, it's been carried out across the length and breadth of India, all central government offices, airports, particularly where citizen interface is there, post offices, railway stations, Kisan Samriddhi Kendras run by Department of Agriculture Research, pension offices, ports, where citizens visit, those have been cleaned up. So this is the extent of the campaign. As I said, every year when we run this campaign, we think that, oh, this target is very steep. 400 crores was the target for this year's revenue, and we could pass it very quickly. We thought 100,000 office spaces, we passed it very quickly. So the scale and size of the campaigns have been growing, and the participation levels have also been increasing manifold. And as you can see, the campaign has attracted huge amount of media attention also. So many best practices came. The Prime Minister spoke about it a number of times in his Mann Ki Baat. He has also tweeted several times on it. 75,000 media tweets on best practices came out. It had a reach of more than 8.5 crore Indians. For a government to government campaign, when you saw the Twitter analytics, the outreach was phenomenally large. And our own department's Twitter handle, which Santosh operates, tweeted 800 times in the last 30 days. So we've curated a number of films on this, and several cabinet ministers and ministers of state have participated in it. One of the media headlines that carried was, so much revenue has been earned that it could finance the Chandrayaan costs. That was one of the media headlines that was carried. And you can see a number of ministers who are participating, Mr. Gadkari, Rajnath Singh ji, then you can find Ashwini Vaishnav, Nirmala Sitharaman ji, all ministers provided leadership. This year it was largely a technology-driven campaign also, in that several technology platforms were also initiated for supervising this scale of the program. Vidyanjali was an app where if you had outdated scrap, electronic scrap, you could donate it to schools. So huge number of laptops and desktops were collected by schools for this purpose. Waste to wealth was another category, the single-use plastic. The fight against single-use plastic was uh, formulated and presented in various fora. Awareness, you have a plastic elephant that is there. There's a plastic danava that has been presented. Also check dams from plastic waste, Kabad ke Kalakriti, a whole number of items in which the fight against single-use plastic was presented. Then you have improving office spaces, wall paintings at several post offices were taken up. Shramdan was taken up. You can see huge number of office vehicles which have been disposed of. Ministry of Defense disposed of as many as 3,700 outdated vehicles. You can see the number of laptops and desktops can be shown. 870 kgs of electronic scrap was disposed by one of the cantonments, let alone all the cantonments. In terms of reducing pendency also, huge numbers were disposed, number of letters that MP's references came in. Prime Minister's office sends out ID numbers, so huge number of PMO IDs, also parliamentary assurances, and large number. As you can see, the campaign mode is one of the best ways of taking it forward. The second big step was increasing efficiency in decision making. One of the first lessons I was given when I joined the Secretariat as a young Deputy Secretary was the Joint Secretary told me that this is the manual of Central Secretariat office procedure. You carry it and you read every page. And unless you're thorough on the manual of office procedure, you cannot become a good Deputy Secretary. It was a mere coincidence that in 2019, I had the mandate of rewriting the Central Secretariat Manual of Office Procedure. I was told it's an impossible task, particularly to merge the Manual of Electronic Office Procedure with the Manual of Procedure. And it had not been done for almost a decade. And it took me about 3 months every day from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We would sit down and draft every para of it. We thinned it down. It was like Mahabharata and Ramayana, and they had to be brought down to a Hanuman Chalisa level. Also, it had to be simplified. Otherwise, e-governance or the e-office system could not be scaled up, particularly for several offices. We brought in the virtual private networks to all deputy secretaries. Digital signature certificates were made mandatory, and a four-pronged approach. In fact, the rewriting of the CSMOP represents a major transformation of the Central Secretariat. And that from 2020 onwards, the Cabinet Secretary has led an initiative of increasing efficiency in decision making, wherein which a file should not move more than 4 levels. So DRPG issued directions that not more than 4 levels. But we also had to monitor, and delegation had to be ensured. Otherwise, files move in 10 levels, 14 levels at times, massive number of levels through which files pass. If you want an agile, alert, nimble secretariat, an agile government, really, you need effective delayering along with delegation of financial powers, administrative powers. We operationalize the desk officer system and we digitize the central secretariat. When we shifted our attention to the states, what we found was that many states had not redone their state secretariat manual of office procedures for almost 50 years. One of the manuals that I was closely associated with rewriting was the Maharashtra Manual of Office Procedure, and it was last written in 1961. So, if you want to operate a state secretariat in 2023, you cannot operate it on a manual written in 1960s. You need to have a manual of 2020s to operate a secretariat of 2020s. So 21st century governance is vastly different. Departments have changed, hierarchies have changed, and how we operate the central secretariat as an institution depends upon how effectively the office procedures are defined. So we used to have a system wherein which the central secretariat works in a hierarchical vertical chain, additional secretaries, joint secretaries, deputy secretaries, so each one reporting to the other. So we had to de-siloize the department, and delayering ensured that joint secretaries and additional secretaries are placed in one silo. So we ensured that Every joint secretary functioned as an independent vertical without reporting to the additional secretary. And every ministry's progress was monitored on a monthly basis. Administrative delegation was monitored through e-office, and e-office and EHRMS were integrated. In EHRMS ensures that the delegated levels are defined. For example, LTCs, GPF advances, computer advances, reimbursements. These are all very routine day-to-day functions. But delegation in terms of spending, miscellaneous and contingent expenditure is not uniformly defined across the Secretariat. It needed multiple orders and consultations with Department of Expenditure to define it. Then e-office, this is work from anywhere portal. So you can, today we have access to e-office from anywhere, any part of the country, any part of the world, you can dispose files. This is a massive transformation that has brought into the Secretariat. In fact, on a cell phone, you can dispose files. The e-office was upgraded into version 7.2, and this is the digitization. I did speak about this in terms of files digitization, in terms of receipts digitization. Our department would receive about 30 lakh receipts from citizens as public grievances, and we would be signing letters. So we would send off about 3,000 letters a day, 7 times a day. Our R&I section, the receipt and dispatch section, would go to the Gold Dak Khana to dispose dak. Today we send everything out by email because citizen identification has been made mandatory. In fact, it's a huge change in terms of how our own department works. So we monitor how many files are on e-receipts, how many files are on e-files every month. Wherever there is a dip in any department, it's immediately pointed out. The desk officer system was something that was introduced a long time back, but it needed monitoring. And as you can see, today it's implemented over 60 departments, and almost 700 desk officers are functioning in the Secretariat. This is the Prashasan Gaon ki Aur, wherein which we tried to take administration to the grassroots level. And Bharat Singh Ji Shekhawat, the late former Vice President of India, had this tremendous passion and had coined this word Prashasan Gaon ki Aur. And when we scaled it to a national level, we found the collective impact of grievance redressal portals functioning in unison, all districts functioning in unison. 315 lakh service delivery applications could be redressed. 54 lakh grievances could be done in 5 days' time. The cumulative impact was a force multiplier. Let me turn to grievance redressal. This is something that the Honorable Prime Minister has called as one of the most important functions of a democracy, of a functional democracy. So everywhere across India, the charge of grievance redressal is handled by chief ministers. And in the central government, it has been with the Prime Minister for a number of years. The CP Grams is the portal wherein which you can log in 24/7, and there are grievance officers mapped on it. The Prime Minister receives, if you see the pmo.gov.in, there is an entry right to Prime Minister, wherein which you can file a grievance. So he receives on an average about 20 lakh PG cases in a year. And there are more than 16 lakh citizens who are registered on it. The average closing time is about 19 days. You write to Prime Minister, you will mandatorily get a response. You will know where your application is. And within 2 weeks' time, you'll get a formal reply, the action taken report under the signatures of the competent authority. Today, we have the lowest pendency that the Central Secretariat has ever witnessed. It was possible because we adopted a massive footprint. 100,000 grievance officers are mapped on the portal. 104,000 officers today are mapped on the portal. And the Prime Minister supervised a 10-step reform of public grievance redressal. And this has been replicated in many states. Now, this 10-step reform was presented to the Honorable Prime Minister as part of the Chintan Shivir. And he said, you please add 4 more steps in addition to the 10 steps that you've done: last mile routing, one nation, one portal, language translation, an assessment of the grievances, using of a call center, data strategy units. These were what we had done. He said, listen to citizens' voices. Citizen connect is important. So we started hearing whatever call records are there in our SOM meetings, improving the quality of disposal. Today, the quality of disposal has gone up to almost 40%. Reimagine service delivery. That's why we brought in the NASDA Way Forward report. Now, we've also introduced appellate system. If a citizen is not satisfied with grievances, then there is an appellate system wherein which a one level higher officer, an additional secretary, will listen to the grievance. And technology upgradation has been a major feature. This is what you can see. How does a grievance move in Government of India when you write to Prime Minister? Earlier, it would land with the nodal officer of the ministry. Today, it lands at the last mile. If you have a grievance with Thiruvananthapuram Post Office, it will land at the Thiruvananthapuram Postmaster's table in real-time basis. That was what this universalization of 7.0 meant, that last mile officers were mapped on the system. Categorization was improved, more than 12,000 categories. If you read the second ARC, a mere 20 categories were indicated. Auto forwarding, time saving, tracking, you would know where a grievance is, reminders being sent out, appeal systems introduced, and then technology was brought in. Prime Minister asked me, "Can you please tell us how many corruption category grievances under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana were received in Varanasi constituency?" It was very difficult to find out, and big data necessitated adoption of use of artificial intelligence, use of machine learning, blockchain technologies, and we have created an AI-based semantic search model in collaboration with IIT Kanpur. So today, on every major scheme, the nature of grievances that are coming, the nature of spread, the geographical spread of the grievances, these can be understood. Also, spam can be easily identified. And if you have an urgent grievance requiring oxygen, requiring urgent medication, those can be red flags straight away. The Intelligent Grievance Monitoring Dashboard was recently launched. We had earlier the IGMS 1.0 version. This is an upgraded version, and this provides even the root cause analysis, wherein which why are grievances coming, and you can address a root cause. For example, in the pandemic period, massive number of grievances were there for evacuations. And once Vande Bharat started, the entire number of grievances that were being filed for evacuation could be closed in one shot. Language translation is very important, particularly in a country of our size, length and breadth, where multi-languages grievances are filed to the Honorable Prime Minister, and Bhashini enables translation of each of these grievances into Hindi, and the grievance officer's redressal is again translated into the regional language. Call centers have been established so that the citizen connect can increase, and across the length and breadth of India, and every citizen who files a grievance, he's made a call, and if he's satisfied, the grievance is closed. If he's not satisfied, it heads to the appellate authority. This is One Nation, One Portal, the integration of all portals. CP Grams represents today the back end of many portals, and we have the capacity to transfer grievances online. Otherwise, we were earlier transferring grievances in physical mode. So we would have tens of thousands of pages being sent as physical doc to various ministries. To ensure the gap between the internet rich citizens and the internet poor citizens, the common service centers have been integrated. More than 5 lakh common service centers register grievances. Capacity building of 100,000 officers is being undertaken through the Sevottam initiative. The state ATIs are there which train officers. We bring out monthly reports. We brought out the latest one today. Every month there is a report on how ministries are performing and how states are performing. And an annual report is also published. Data can be seen on a tree dashboard. How is an individual officer performing? And where is the grievance getting delayed? Today we have mapped 104,000 officers, and the performance of each officer can be mapped. A tree dashboard using an AI-based analysis provides a comprehensive depth to understanding grievance redressal. Further, ministries are ranked on what is a grievance redressal assessment index. So you find all the greens are those areas where the categories where ministries are doing satisfactorily, but the red ones are those where the ministries need improvement. For example, you'll find several reds in terms of the number of grievance officers handling grievances. So wherever the grievance officer is overburdened, there additional grievance officer posts are created. Grievances can be filed on an app. Umang platform has CPgrams. A separate app is also being developed for this purpose. This multiple step reform received a lot of appreciation from the Standing Committee in its 127th report. And so I have covered the three major areas of administrative reforms, e-governance, and effective redressal of public grievances. The new paradigm of governance can be seen in terms of not only scaling up of the PM's awards, recognition, effective redressal of public grievances, good governance campaigns, streamlining these large institutions like the Central Secretariat and the State Secretariats, promoting e-governance, and publication and dissemination through regional conferences, webinars, good governance webinars, as also international collaborations. So this is a quote I thought that I should cite before I close this session. The Prime Minister, on his completion of 9 years in office, said, "As we complete 9 years in the service of the nation, I'm filled with humility and gratitude. Every decision made, every action taken has been guided by the desire to improve the lives of people. We'll keep working even harder to to build a developed India." So this is what I had to share with you, sir. Thank you very much for giving me time. And let me introduce our team also. Mr. N, if you could just stand. I'll just introduce our team which has worked. Mr. Puneet Yadav is the Joint Secretary. Mr. NBS Rajput is the Joint Secretary working on administrative reforms. Puneet ji works on e-governance. Mr. Sardendu Pandey works on documentation dissemination. He does the regional conferences. Mrs. Priska Matthew works on the PM Award scheme. Then Sanjeev Srivastava ji has just completed the special campaign in which we earned 527 crores. And Santosh ji handles our Twitter handle and creates all films. Sir, with your permission, we would like to show you a film on the PM Awards for Excellence in Public Administration.
भारत, जहां सपने जैसा सच और इसी सच के सम्मान का उत्सव है। प्राइम मिनिस्टर अवार्ड्स फॉर एक्सीलेंस इन पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन।
सिविल सर्विस का सबसे बड़ा काम ये कभी भी हमारे लक्ष्य से ओझल नहीं होना चाहिए। हमारे हर काम में कसौटी एक होनी चाहिए, इंडिया फर्स्ट, नेशन फर्स्ट। मेरा राष्ट्र सर्वोपरि। परिवर्तन लाने का सामर्थ्य देश में है और सिर्फ हमें विश्वास लेके जी रहे ऐसा नहीं, दुनिया बहुत बड़ी आशा के साथ हमारी तरफ देख रही है। तब हमारा कर्तव्य बनता है उस कर्तव्य की पूर्ति के लिए हम अपने आप को सज्ज करें।
भारत, जहां पंक्ति की आखिर में खड़े की आंखों में अब तरक्की के सपनों का बसेरा होता है। मुश्किलें होती हैं पर उसे अब सच करने का हौसला होता है। क्या ये हम भी कर सकते हैं? क्या ये हम भी कभी कर पाएंगे? क्या हम इतने पीछे से कभी सामने भी आ पाएंगे? इतिहास है अब सवाल ऐसे जवाब दे रही है नई उड़ान, नई पहचान, नया वर्तमान, नए नए कीर्तिमान। कभी अपने आंगन में पानी का बहना भी सपनों की लिस्ट में अव्वल हुआ करता था।
अब जो है हमारे पानी से हमको भरपूर मिल रहा है। हमारे यहाँ घर में गंगा बह रही है।
आज बेवजह प्यास की कहानी पुरानी हो चुकी है। पानी के सपने नलों से निकलकर सच हो गए हैं।
जल जीवन मिशन की वजह से अब टैप का पानी भी मेरे परिवार के लिए सुरक्षित है।
सेहत, जिसकी सुरक्षा जेब के सामने अक्सर छोटी पड़ जाती थी।
मुझे अपनी गर्भावस्था के दौरान सभी मुफ्त सेवाएं मिली।
अब उन्हें भी निरोग रहने की समानता का मौका मिल रहा है।
आयुष्मान भारत की वजह से अब मुझे किसी के सामने हाथ फैलाने की जरूरत नहीं है।
क्या हमारे बच्चे भी वो सब कुछ कर पाएंगे जिसे दर्जे ने हमसे दूर रखा था? क्या वो भी अपनी मर्जी की ऊंचाई छू पाएंगे?
जो प्राइवेट विद्यालयों में फैसिलिटी है, वो सारी फैसिलिटियां हमारे इस गांव के विद्यालय में उपलब्ध है।
ऐसे कई सवाल जो मन के ब्लैक बोर्ड पर कब से लिखे थे, उसे नई नीतियों ने सदा के लिए मिटा दिया और उनकी जगह नई सोच की नई लौ जला दी।
जब हम बच्चों को स्कूल छोड़ने जाते हैं तो हमारे गांव की स्कूल पर हमें गर्व होता है।
इस नई रोशनी में जो दिख रहा है वो कभी सपना ही तो हुआ करता था, जिसे अब रचने की, सच करने के नए नए रास्ते मिल गए हैं। ये नए नए तरीकों से नए नए आयाम तय करना।
अब हार्ट ट्रांसप्लांट
जो दिख रहा है वो कभी सपना ही तो हुआ करता था, जिसे अब रचने की, सच करने के नए नए रास्ते मिल गए हैं। ये नए नए तरीकों से नए नए आयाम तय करना।
अब हार्ट ट्रांसप्लांट
Huh. Just got one more minute actually to play.
गांव के स्कूल पर हमें
नए नए रास्ते।
अब हार्ट ट्रांसप्लांट के बाद मैं अपना फ्यूचर बना सकता हूँ, सही से काम कर सकता हूँ।
नई नई बुलंदियों पे पहली दफा पांव रखना।
मिशन युग की वजह से ही जम्मू एंड कश्मीर के 1000 युवा वो आज किसी न किसी रेपुटेड इंस्टीट्यूट में पढ़ रहे हैं।
पहली दफा इनोवेशन का रेवोल्यूशन बनना और भविष्य की हर चुनौती का सॉल्यूशन ढूंढना।
रामपुर में अब बच्चों का भविष्य सुरक्षित है।
ये सब सपना ही तो था जो कैद था सोच की शिथिलता में।
जो औरतें जो हाथ भट्टी में काम करती थी वो अभी सम्मान के साथ ये काम कर रही है।
अब आजाद है, गतिमान है।
यहाँ पे आने की वजह से हम वीआर के जरिए पूरी दुनिया देख पाते हैं।
संकल्प की सिद्धि में, समग्र समृद्धि में।
अपने डिस्ट्रिक्ट बारामूला को देश का नंबर 1 डिस्ट्रिक्ट बनाएंगे।
जन चेतना की नई जागृति में, प्रगति की नई संस्कृति में।
जो लड्डू हम आज बना रहे हैं वो हम बच्चों के लिए एनीमिया और मैलन्यूट्रिशन से फाइट करने के लिए कर रहे हैं।
जो रच रहा है अमृत काल का आकार और कह रहा है विश्व से, हम सब हैं भारत, जहां हर सपना होता है सच।
से है ये रोशन खिला है नया फूल चल कहीं तुझसे ये देश तुझी से उसकी है मंज़िल जहाँ ये मौसम जीत कहे तुझसे ये देश तेरा, तुझी से उसकी है बंस।
Thank you very much, sir. So we'd like to thank VIF for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for Srinivas ji for giving us a glimpse into this silent revolution which is underway. The figures that you gave are truly staggering. I mean, it's almost unbelievable, having been in the government for such a long time, that such a massive transformation is underway. And it's also touching, in fact, because it's touching so many lives, people's lives in a positive way. And it's nice to hear these positive stories coming from the government, which is not very easy, you know, it's not very easily heard. And we are so much used to self-criticism, self-flagellation, but so many things have been done. It's quite amazing, and it will unlock the potential, I think. So I open this for discussion. I'm sure there are many people here